They weren't just comedians. Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy were the very soul of laughter itself. Together, they turned clumsy chaos into art, sadness into joy, and silence into the loudest kind of comedy. But when the laughter faded and Oliver "Babe" Hardy passed away, the world expected one final scene. Stan Laurel standing by his best friend's side. Instead, he was nowhere to be found. No speech, no goodbye, not even a tear in public. Why? What could make a man skip the funeral of the person who defined his entire life? The answer is more tragic, more human, and more powerful than anyone ever knew. Before fame and fortune, Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy came from completely different worlds. Stan, born Arthur Stanley Jefferson in 1890 in Ulverston, England, grew up surrounded by the world of theater. His father managed playhouses, his mother performed on stage, and young Stan spent his childhood backstage watching actors transform into characters under flickering lights. From an early age, he was fascinated not by fame, but by performance itself. The rhythm, timing, and emotion that made an audience laugh or cry. By his teenage years, he joined Fred Karno's vaudeville troupe, the same company that launched Charlie Chaplin into stardom. While others sought applause, Stan studied the science of humor. He learned how silence could speak louder than words, and how a small gesture could turn into a roar of laughter. Across the Atlantic, another story was unfolding. Oliver Norval Hardy was born in 1892 in Harlem, Georgia. His father, a Civil War veteran, passed away when Oliver was just a baby, leaving his mother to raise him alone. As a boy, Hardy was mischievous, warm-hearted, and drawn to the things that made life joyful: music, laughter, and food. He loved singing and had a rich, commanding voice that could fill a room. Though he tried military and law school, his heart was never in it. His real passion lay in entertaining people. By the 1910s, he was acting in silent short films, often cast as the heavy or the comic villain. He had a natural flair for the screen, but he didn't yet know he was walking toward the greatest partnership of his life. In 1921, fate brought them together in a small, silent comedy called The Lucky Dog. The film came and went without much notice, but it unknowingly marked the beginning of something extraordinary. Stan played a homeless man who gets robbed, and Oliver played the crook. They shared only a few scenes, and neither could have guessed that years later, they would become one of cinema's most beloved duos. By the mid-1920s, both men found themselves working at Hal Roach Studios, a creative playground where comedy legends were born. It was there that director Leo McCarey noticed their chemistry. When Laurel's innocent confusion met Hardy's pompous pride, something clicked. It wasn't rehearsed. It was natural, effortless, and pure. Their first official film as a team, Putting Pants on Philip, 1927, captured that chemistry perfectly. Stan's gentle bewilderment and Ollie's exasperated dignity created a comic rhythm that felt alive. Together, they turned everyday mishaps into timeless. The late 1920s and 1930s marked the golden era of Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy. With unforgettable films like Big Business, The Music Box, Sons of the Desert, and Way Out West, they became household names across the world. Their signature theme, the Cuckoo Song, became one of the most recognizable melodies in film history. Just a few notes could bring a smile, a signal that chaos, charm, and laughter were moments away. Critics called them the perfect balance of opposites, the fool and the frustrated gentleman. Their humor was innocent, deeply human, and universally understood. Whether in London, Los Angeles, or Paris, audiences laughed with them, not at them. Yet behind the applause, their lives were filled with struggle. Stan Laurel wasn't just a performer. Oliver Hardy, meanwhile, was easygoing and kind, but quietly burdened. Financial troubles followed him, and his generosity often left him broke. His marriages were troubled, and the man who made millions laugh often battled loneliness himself. Still, when the cameras rolled, all their worries disappeared. Together, they became one soul of comedy. By the 1940s, the golden age of slapstick faded. Their final film, Atoll K, 1951, was meant to be a comeback, but it became a farewell. Both men, exhausted and ailing, watched as their effortless laughter finally turned into silence. Still, their friendship endured. They continued to tour Europe in the early 1950s, performing for adoring crowds who saw them not just as entertainers, but as old friends. Yet time was catching up with them, and Oliver Hardy's health was declining rapidly. Years of overwork, weight strain, and smoking took their toll. By 1954, he suffered a heart attack that forced him to reconsider his lifestyle. Determined to recover, he lost more than 150 pounds. When he appeared in public again, fans barely recognized him. The transformation was shocking. Gone was the round, confident figure the world adored. What remained was a frail, quiet man whose laughter had dimmed. Then came tragedy. In 1956, Oliver Hardy suffered a massive stroke that left him paralyzed and unable to speak. For a man whose life revolved around expression and timing, it was unbearably cruel. He never fully recovered. His devoted wife, Lucille Hardy, cared for him as his strength faded, while Stan Laurel called and wrote constantly, desperate to stay connected to the friend he could no longer reach. On August 7, 1957, Oliver Hardy passed away at the age of 65 from cerebral thrombosis. News of his death spread across the world. Tributes poured in from Hollywood, Europe, and beyond. Comedians, actors, and fans mourned not just the man, but the end of an era. In theaters across the world, their films were played again, and audiences laughed through their tears. The golden age of laughter had lost one of its brightest stars. A few days later, Oliver Hardy's funeral was held at Valhalla Memorial Park in North Hollywood. It was a simple, dignified ceremony, attended by family, old friends, and fellow performers. Cameras lined the streets, waiting to capture the image everyone expected: Stan Laurel, standing beside his lifelong friend one last time. But he never came. The seat reserved for him remained empty. People were shocked. Some thought they had fallen out. Others whispered about pride or guilt. But the truth was neither cruel nor careless. It was human. By that time, Stan Laurel was in fragile health himself. Years of diabetes, heart problems, and exhaustion had left him weak. His doctor warned him that the physical and emotional strain of attending could be fatal. And more than that, Stan couldn't bear it. The grief was too deep, the loss too heavy. When a reporter asked him why he hadn't attended, Stan simply said, "Babe would understand." That short, aching sentence said everything. Babe was the nickname he had used for Hardy for decades, a word filled with affection and brotherhood. He knew his friend would never have wanted him to suffer through a public spectacle of sorrow. He also understood how the media worked. If he appeared frail and emotional, the cameras would turn to him, not Hardy. The funeral would become a story about his grief, not about his friend's life. So he stayed home. It wasn't an act of neglect, it was a final act of love. After Hardy's death, Stan Laurel withdrew from public life. He lived quietly in Santa Monica, surrounded by memories, scripts, photos, and old letters. He never performed again. For him, Laurel and Hardy were one creation, and one half of it was gone forever. Still, he continued to write sketches, jokes, and stories, often including Hardy's name beside his own, as if they would someday perform together again. He answered fan letters with warmth and humility, always grateful for the people who still remembered their work. In 1961, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences awarded him an honorary Oscar for his contribution to comedy. But true to his nature, he didn't attend the ceremony. The spotlight no longer mattered to him. His heart remained with Babe. On February 23, 1965, Stan Laurel passed away from a heart attack at the age of 74. The world lost another master of laughter, but his legacy, along with Oliver Hardy's, lived on. Together, they had created more than comedy. They had built a language of joy understood across generations. They began as opposites, but ended as legends. Two men whose laughter still echoes through time. Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy proved that comedy isn't just about jokes. It's about heart, loyalty, and love. Their friendship transcended fame and even death itself. If their story moved you, Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more untold Hollywood stories. Because sometimes the greatest love stories aren't romantic. They're written in laughter that never fades. Thanks for watching.